So I found out kind of when looking at Smash players and Smash history that you probably have some of the most revered nicknames in Melee history. You know, I feel like people call you everything from Joey to J-Bone to the Batman and more that I've never even heard yet. Where did some of these names come from?
Uh, I don't think there's like any specific place. They're kind of just over the years of playing and just having a bunch of different friends that I think we've just had a history of calling ourselves dumbass nicknames. Like if you are familiar with Mango at all, he's called himself like the Golden Glove Marquez
Yes.
and stuff like that. Like we've always just kind of thought of dumbass nicknames, and I don't know why or where that comes from. It's just something we've done since we were kids, and it's kind of just spawned all the way from the Batman when I think we were like, I think we had to have been like 13 years old playing Free for All. We had like it was just like a stay over kind of smash fest at my house with a couple friends before we even knew about the competitive scene. And for some reason, I just picked the black Captain Falcon color and called myself Batman for absolutely no reason when I was 13 years old. And then we kind of just made that joke like years later once we started, going to tournaments and streaming and stuff. And yeah, like I said, we've been kind of doing that for years. And like I think the J-Bone thing happened maybe a couple years ago, not too long. And I think I had just watched this movie called This Is the End.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and there's a scene where a bunch of the guys confront is it Emma Stone or Emma
Emma
Watson? I forget her
Emma
name.
Stone.
No, Emma Watson, I
Was it
believe.
Emma Watson?
Yeah. I won't give too much context in the stream, but basically they're trying to prove to her that they're not trying to cause her any harm. And so Jonah just calls himself like 18 different nicknames in like a 2 second span, and J Bone was one of my favorite ones, so I started saying that for no reason.
It's honestly, it's so catchy. I think I've started calling some of my J named friends J Bone, and it rolls off the tongue so
Yeah,
smoothly.
yeah, it's pretty funny too.
What about your tag, Lucky? Where did Lucky come from?
Lucky's a pretty funny little story. As a kid, I wasn't allowed to have pets in the house. My mom was just super against it. She didn't want pets on the rug, on the couches, just inside the house was just a big no-no. So
Mm-hmm.
I, as a little kid, refused to get a pet unless it could be inside the house. So like I grew up without a pet because I refused. So I was like, no, I'm not gonna let the cold get my poor dog or cat.
That's very
And so yeah, and so I had this best friend as a kid who had a dog named Lucky, and it was just the cutest little dog. And I would go over to my friend's house and just play with the dog all the time. And I don't know why, I love that dog so much, and uh, I kind of just used it as a tag one time because Mango had taken me to like LAN center, a PC LAN center, and we had to play. I think it was like a LAN session for Counter Strike, and he's like, "You need to have a tag," and I was like, "I have nothing. I've never had a gamer tag. I don't know what do I even use." He's like, "Just first name that comes to mind," and I just Lucky the dog. I just thought of it, and I just kind of used it for no reason.
Do you remember the breed of the dog? Sounds like a very cute dog.
No, I don't. I've thought about trying to look up dog breeds just to see if I can find it. It was like a little miniature golden retriever, and like that's what I remember it
Wow.
looking like. Like I doubt that's what it was, but that's what it reminded me of when I think about it now.
And who would have thought that your one friend's cute little dog would end up being the stage name for like a huge career in a game that's lasted this long? You know, how many
Yeah,
hundreds and thousands of people have some degree of connection to your
to,
old friend's tiny dog or older dog?
exactly. And the funniest thing is too that friend specifically got me to play Super Smash Brothers 64 for the first time. He owned that
Wow.
game, so it's like a little bit of weird backstory to it.
That is crazy actually. And was Smash
Hmm.
64, did you play it before Melee, or was that like your first exposure to Smash was playing
Yeah,
64?
yeah, absolutely. Because of
Incredible.
that
Incredible what
franchise.
that friend has done.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. And if I could ask one more question on the topic of names, just because I'm interested, I feel like a rite of passage as you play Melee for more and more years is you start to name your characters. So we've talked about the Batman and its reference to maybe Black Falcon, but what were some other nicknames you've given your characters? Do you have any funky nicknames that you name Your alternate cast of characters?
Uh, there was. I remember I called my Marth Mango Jr. for a long time,
Hmm.
and there was like no reason for that at all. It made no sense, but for some reason, I just thought my Marth was going to be the best. It was going to make me become the best player in the world, so I wanted it to be called Mango Jr.
Amazing.
um, I will say at one point in time, when I wanted to start becoming a more tech chase heavy Falcon, I, I wanted to stop calling myself the Batman, and I definitely called myself Jizro.
Yeah, I knew it was coming.
Yeah, so that was a pretty funny one.
Man, Jizrobe is so fire.
Yeah, Jizzy, Jizro. Yeah,
Jizzy's crazy.
yeah. The one I always wanted to just kind of smurf with, like on Slippy, if it ever became like a thing, as I wanted to start playing Samus to name myself Jugs, which I thought would be funny. Jugs 86 for Hugo hugs. So I thought that would be hilarious, but I
It's
think
never
Jizro
too
is
late.
probably the funniest one.
You could bring
Yeah.
Jugs 86 into 2025.
It's not a dead idea, that's for sure.
Anybody, I bet you, based on the results of this video, you're gonna see at least one unranked Samus rocking Jugs 86 from here on out.
It's very
This,
possible, yeah.
We've changed the world a little bit in this moment. And obviously, you've been playing for a long time. Like, there are new players now. I'm a teacher for reference, and there are students that I teach who know about Melee, who are younger than the time that many of us have been competing for at this point. What do you think is the biggest difference as somebody who's arguably some of the very best talent? You've been surrounding with the best players for decades. What's the biggest difference in what competitive Melee is now compared to when you first started playing? Like, what does it feel like playing competitive Melee in 2024 versus what it felt like maybe in the 2010s or prior in 2007, 2008?
It was the unknown aspect of like play styles and combo routes, game plans, like whatever, like everything that goes into a single match of Melee was just completely unknown. Like nowadays when you play a match, there is a list of things you are supposed to do as a like specific player, right? Like as a Fox player, there are specific rules you are supposed to follow if you want to be a good Fox. When I was coming into the scene when I was a little kid, that didn't exist. So there was just so much like variables that like there's so many variables and like so much expression that went into a single game of Melee because there was no like flowchart. There was no checklist of how you were supposed to play a character. Everyone was trying to make stuff up as it went. You know, like I remember when people played Fox back when I was younger, everyone was trying to like super just laser camp all the floaties and like no one wanted to even press the A button versus floaties. Oh, like Mango and I were just like, well, no, let's just go so fast that the floaties can't do anything. Like, who cares? Let's just shield pressure. Like, we shield pressure, just press buttons on them. Just who cares? And like, you know, it was just something different every time you watched Melee. Where now it's like I said, I think there's a specific set of rules, which is, you know, it's a beautiful thing in its own right, but it's just very, very different when you look at it that way.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself then like an off flowchart Fox? Like, have you always liked playing against that grain of what you should do, or where do you kind of see yourself in a following the rules of how you should play Fox?
I think on average, I'm on the. I'm on the. It's funny, right? Because I want to say I lean more towards a unorthodox playstyle, but when I'm playing my absolute best, it's when I'm mixing in both. I'm playing very, very by the rules for a good portion of a single match, and then out of nowhere for a stock or two, I'll just go off the rails and just be as different as possible to throw people off. So I think I somewhere in the middle, I would say.
That's awesome. So Wavelength was a tournament that happened not too long ago. I'm sure you're familiar.
Yeah,
Heading, you know, maybe you remember it a little bit. How did you feel heading into Wavelength? So not necessarily before day one even began, like the week before or like as you entered. What was your mentality of your Melee play heading into the tournament?
I hate to be like cliche about this. I had no faith going into that tournament. I was having controller problems. I had a lot of like life stuff going on. I actually when I went to the airport for that tournament, like I was having such a bad week leading into that event with just personal stuff that I got to the airport and my flight was delayed by like 3 or 4 hours. I just sat there
Oh
like
man.
thinking, this is a sign. I have always gone to tournaments when I say I'm going to go. If I'm signed up for a bracket, I've never dropped out. I've just always been like against the idea of like if I said I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there because I had
Hmm.
a flight purchased for me. So I was like, I owe this to, you know, to players that aren't as fortunate to be able to like attend events and stuff. But I sat there for those 3 hours debating on just not going to that event. Like I did
Oh
not want to go to Wavelength. Like it took a lot. I remember I sat there, I was DMing people, and people were telling me not to go. Some people were telling me to go. Just use it as a vacation. Just don't enter the bracket. I think it's just expectations were super low, which funny enough can just help with nerves and stuff. So
yeah.
leading into it, like I said, I wasn't a very confident little guy.
Well, I think it's incredible that when the world gave all those signs that you could possibly interpret as a maybe I'll just head home. Uh,
Yeah.
Really cool to see you follow through, and I think you're right. I wonder if maybe when you have no expectations because everything feels like, oh man, it just hasn't been the week. Maybe that
Mhm.
played a role.
Yeah, I would say so. Definitely to an extent, for sure.
Now, if we go to the bracket and we head over to round two first, where you played Dawson, that was a close one, but Dawson ended up taking it.
Mhm.
What's the mentality at that point? How does it feel after that particular loss?
Um, like I had said before, I had some controller problems where I
Hmm.
was accidentally light shielding whenever I would try to jump cancel grab, which would make me shield stop instead of doing a running jump cancel grab. So I would kind of just try to grab someone and shield grab right in front of them instead.
Hmm.
And it was really frustrating, especially against Dawson, because I think it happened maybe once or twice, which made me scared to grab. And you'd need to grab Jigglypuff as a Fox player. So when I lost it, I was like, okay, I played pretty well. I almost won that set. I had a handful of like handicaps going into it with the whole grab thing. I feel like I'm playing well. If I can just maybe get around that grab issue, I feel like I can still come back in the bracket and just play better in losers.
Wow. And you know what? I think a lot of people who don't own a controller or play serious enough with a custom controller to understand when how damaging and devastating these type of controller issues can be.
Hmm.
Is this like are there people at these tournaments who are able to fix like I guess what I'm wondering is like are these issues something you just have to play through at the time, like there's nothing you can really do to get around
It's
that?
yeah, it's really frustrating. Since basically if you were to like play any kind of traditional fighting game, I'm sure even like mouse and keyboard, it's like there's specific settings for mouse and keyboard you just have, which I'm sure is like a lot easier to handle when you have like a fighting game like Street Fighter. Everything's digital input, so it's just
Mm-hmm.
up equals up, down equals down, left equals left, punch equals punch. It's very simple. When you look at a game like Melee, everything's analog, so like even the tiniest differences in like the stick tightness, the triggers, like the way that they're like pressed down all the way or not pressed down all the way, like all that stuff matters so much more than like other competitive games. And it's really, really frustrating because if you try to have someone fix something, yeah, it's like if the answer is they have to replace that something, then it's like you're gonna most likely have a completely different feel on it, which is really,
Yeah.
really frustrating. So more often than not, players don't even want to touch their controller when they're at a big tournament because sure, maybe it's fixed, but it's gonna feel so different that it's gonna mess with your muscle memory.
Wow.
So it can be a really frustrating thing to go through when you have controller problems, especially during a big tournament like that.
It's crazy how, and it could be the slightest thing. Like it might be an issue, and it also might be an issue that just pops up. You know, that day you might
Mhm.
notice it, or the day before, but you've got a flight. You can't necessarily get a new controller on a snap
Exactly,
and replace it.
exactly. That
Wow.
is very, very true.
So, is there a particular? So I know that there's in the GameCube controller modding part of Melee, there's a lot of different types of controllers. Is there one in particular that you feel like has served you best, or is it still like a lottery for how long a controller lasts and plays and feels amazing?
Yeah, I think no matter how you look at it, it's always a bit of a lottery aspect to it. It feels like a RNG. You're just you're kind of gambling on a brand new controller. Is it
Wow.
gonna feel good? Is it gonna feel bad? Is it gonna feel just different? You got to get used to it. You just You really never know.
I heard how players used to talk about controllers before we really got into modding, where you would just buy new ones or like used ones and try and get those
Mm.
perfect controllers. It feels like all this
Yeah.
we've come so far, and that still feels like.
Yeah.
Except now the
Yeah.
controllers are like $300 in plus.
Oh, don't get me started on controller prices. It is so upsetting. It brings the old man out of me.
Yeah, I see it and I'm like, look, maybe I'll just stick with the one I got from a flea market for $25. You know, maybe I'll just
Yeah.
have to get better, and then that $275 difference won't matter.
Yeah. Then it just becomes an investment
Yeah,
as opposed of like a gift to yourself because it literally costs that much.
exactly. You know, rent can wait till next month. I need my fob.
Exactly. Exactly.
I'm wondering. So you're quite the technical player. You press buttons a lot. How long? So if you get a new controller, maybe think back to the most recent new controller you've got. How long does it typically last before you start to notice things that don't feel right or might be broken? How long does it play like a dream?
Yeah, it depends on the controller type. So this current controller I'm playing on is a fob, and
Mhm.
it's my second fob ever, which I think the last fob I had I used for about a year straight, and throughout the time of having that fob, I think I had to replace the stick 2 to 3 times, which is you want to say give or take maybe 4-ish months maybe I would have to replace the stick, which is
Wow.
yeah, but again, I'm also someone that, plays on average like 4 to 5 hours a day, and my APM is a little higher than average, I would imagine. So,
Hmm.
maybe it'll last a little longer for some people. I can't imagine needing to replace stuff faster than that if you're on a fob. Back when I was on a standard OEM controller, I would easily say up to a year. I would probably need a new controller. OEM's
Yeah.
definitely lasted the longest for me, honestly.
Which controllers of the OEMs, what colors gave you the best luck?
Oh, as JP White, no matter what. I love the JP
Amazing.
Whites. Yeah.
I think they're so beautiful.
Yes. I absolutely agree. Hard, hard, hard agree.
So at Wavelength, something that I thought was so impressive when looking over your bracket is after that loss to Dawson, across that tournament run, you won over 4 game 5 sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it kept happening, and
Yeah.
what I'm interested in knowing is at that level where everybody you're playing is like a top 100 somewhere in their player. Like everybody is
Mhm.
scary. How are you keeping yourself composed at that level of play in game 5? Like, are you is there what's going through your mind? Are you stopping certain thoughts from popping in there? How do you feel in that moment in game 5?
Um, well, it depends, obviously, from tournament to tournament, but there specifically, I didn't fix my controller from that set with Dawson until top eight. So I think I had 2 game 5s, or if not three, outside of the top eight,
Mm-hmm.
and those sets specifically, my controller was still acting up. So I think in like most of them, I went down 0-2, and it felt like a lot of it was due to the controller, and so I would just kind of complain in my head, saying, "Okay, I'm down, but I literally feel like I'm a lot better than this, and this controller is just kind of hindering my experience. So I'm gonna just try and ignore that aspect of the game and just play to my other strengths." And for some reason, it just worked so well that it just felt like I should have lost when you go down 0-2 as a Fox player and you have to deal with some counter picks. Marth on FD, I think one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when you're just playing so good that you just start winning on your opponent's counter pick, you're just like, okay, I guess I just have no reason to be nervous. Like if I'm gonna lose, it should technically be over at this point, so I might as well just give it my all.
That's so true. And
Yeah.
in the Marth scenario that I'm thinking in my mind at that tournament, it felt like you gained momentum with like the FD matches against Calvar was the
Yeah.
set. Like you kept hitting harder and harder, and by the end of it, it was like a 3 stock for you in game 5. It was
Yeah.
I guess then once you're down 0-2 and you've already proven that you can win on the worst maps or stages in the matchup,
Mm.
that anything is possible.
Yeah. Like I said, I think it's just going down 0-2. Um, you kind of already felt like you just kind of feel like it's over. So it's like I think part of those nerves go away. You're not really scared of losing anymore because you're just so close to losing anyways. You're like, I might as well just give it my best shot. I'm probably gonna lose anyways. Let's just see how close I can make it.
Is there a
And
strategy to losing the 2 games on purpose to give you that fire under your ass?
I wouldn't say so. I don't think it's the best idea. I've put myself in that spot a lot on accident, and I'm never exactly happy being there, but I do feel like it makes me personally focus a lot harder. You get a little more a little life when you're at Death's Door.
Wow. Well, I think when I think of game 5 matches and I think of all the people you beat, is there any player in particular right now, or maybe even in past years, if they were really notable, that you felt were your biggest demon that maybe made you feel less confident even though you had the momentum? Or like, what players were your biggest demons at this tournament or in general? Who gives you that, oh man, I'm nervous feeling? Is there
Mm,
anybody?
honestly, I think the biggest demon off the top of my head is like randomly Axe. I think Axe a Pikachu player because I have a really bad habit of feeling like if something's not working, then I should just never do it again. Like they shown me that they can beat this option, so I don't want to do that option anymore. And I have a kind of like a baby coach slash friend that helps me out a lot sometimes at tournaments, and he gets really mad at me for doing that because just because a good tool didn't work once doesn't make it a bad tool. It's still a good tool that you need to implement and suggest to your opponent that you'll still do. But when I play against Axe, sometimes he literally will zero to def you or edge guard you at 0%, and it just terrifies me so hard that I don't want to represent that tool anymore. And so traditionally, I've had some really close sets with Axe, but once we get to game 5, he ends up kind of taking all the momentum because I'll just get a little more and more scared as the set goes on. So he might be actually the number one demon for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But you know what? It makes a lot of sense.
Mm,
Um, when I think about tools that we show and what we don't show in playing, especially as a Fox player, a character who theoretically has a ton of tools,
mm.
are you able to think about like how does how you play compare to how the other top Foxes play? So I know that we talked a lot about how you personally as a player face these sets, but when you do you ever watch other Fox sets? Is there a way to articulate how a couple of the other top Foxes like Moki or Aklo or
Mm.
Mango's Fox play compared to yours?
Uh, I can't give a specific name since I don't usually focus too hard on a single Fox player. I'll watch
Mm-hmm.
their sets here and there, but it's not something I'm trying to super like dissect or really like pay attention to, I guess. Um the main thing I can say at least when I do watch other Fox players play is they are just so confident in risk reward. If they think something will get them a stock, no matter how many times it doesn't work, they're going to keep doing it whenever they have the chance, just because they want that reward so badly. Where, like I said, I'm the type of player where if I see something doesn't work, I'm like, okay, that's not working. Let's find the next option that will work, even if it gets me less reward. I want to keep winning the neutral interaction as opposed to waiting for the neutral interaction that will get me the biggest reward. But when I see other Fox players play, they are so attracted to that option that will give them the biggest reward that they almost ignore every other option. They just wait for
Ah.
that option to come up, and until that option comes up, they will keep waiting for it.
Very well
That's
said. That's interesting. I mean, I've never noticed it, but I'm a very different caliber of Fox. Uh,
yeah. It's just the way I kind of look at the game, I think, which is sometimes a really good thing, but sometimes it's a pretty bad thing.
is
So
that
it depends. It depends.
is that something that has changed over time? How you look at the game? What's the last significant change that's happened in how you've looked at the game that you can remember or talk about?
I would say that's a big one. It's something I struggle with from tournament to tournament. I'll remember to do that to understand that a play because I use it as a way to break down my opponent. Right? When I'm trying to beat someone, I'm trying to figure out, okay, if they beat this option, let's find the next option that works. But sometimes when I find that option that works, instead of just abusing the fact that they're going to keep hoping for their neutral win, their neutral gamble, I expect them to do what I do and try to change it up. And I kind of go for like the next read as opposed to making them prove that what I'm doing um won't work anymore, right? like if I were to word it better, it's something that I'm not sure how to explain it. It's just like I'm always looking for the next option, and I think I refuse to believe that my opponent isn't also doing the same thing. So I would say the biggest change for me is whenever I accept that my opponent isn't going to look for the next option. That's usually when I'm playing at my best. But because I'm so constantly looking for new options and new mix-ups, it sometimes is a really bad thing for me. So whenever I feel like I'm playing at my best, it's because I'm willing to accept that my opponent will not mix it up. They won't change. They're gonna focus on their one opening, their one combo starter. But again, it's something I say. It's like I'll from tournament to tournament. Sometimes I'll make that change. Sometimes I won't. It's a really
Hmm.
frustrating thing that I battle with.
And it sounds like it's something that you need to like. It's hugely mental. Like we can tell ourselves this when we're outside of the tournament, and it's
Mhm.
you're sitting here talking to me, or when you're watching over a set that you've played. But I guess to remind yourself in the moment when there's 100 other things as you're looking for their next options, for example,
Yeah,
it must be tough to constantly have these reminders and keep focused on all of these different points while playing a top 20 player on a game 5 set,
yeah,
something like
definitely,
that.
definitely. That's why I have a lot of respect for the top level Fox players that are still doing it because I
Hmm.
think that's so hard to to do from a mental aspect of the game.
Look, it could be
Just
time
to
for Jizzy to come out.
yeah, honestly, honestly, it might be time.
So looking back on everything that Melee has become, what do you think is the legacy that you're leaving the Melee players of the future to remember you by?
My legacy.
Your legacy. What is the lucky legacy?
Uh, you know, I don't think I get to choose that, but from what I've seen from a lot of fans and comments and what people will tell me in person is I might be the player that can lose to any single person in the bracket, but I am also randomly the player that can beat every single person in the bracket. You just never know what you're going to get with me. I'm either going to be a top 10 to top 20 player or I'm going to be a top 500 player. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being the the roulette player. You just never know.
Yeah, it's a roller coaster, right? You're in it for the highs and the lows.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
During Wavelength, was there, I know that you kind of went into it feeling like, oh man, I'm not feeling too good about this tournament. Into top 8 now with already several incredible wins just before you even started top 8, and then going on to face Joshman and then Mango and then Aklo. Was there a point in that top 8 where you were like, I can win this whole thing? Like, this is very doable for me. Was there a point there where you felt like it was within reach?
No. Um, Only because of my mentality as a player is to never ever look at the next set. I always just focus as hard as I can on the set that's next, like that I'm playing,
Mm-hmm.
and I never look past that. So when I beat Josh Man, or even when I was playing Josh Man, I wasn't thinking about who I had to play next. When I played Mango, I wasn't thinking about, if I can beat Mango, can I beat Aklo? If I can beat Aklo, can I beat this person, and so on. I'm just always focused on that single set that I'm playing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for me to imagine winning the tournament since I'm so focused on that set I'm playing.
Wow. It'll make it even better though as you win and there's no other next set to think about.
Yeah,
And
yeah, that that is true actually.
um so aside from, so most of the sets were a 3-2 at Wavelength. One of the 3-0s we saw was over Mango.
Yeah.
How did that, like, what was going on in that set? Was that you playing incredible? How did you feel about how that set played out? Did you guys, what were there conversations that you guys talked about afterwards? What happened in that set? That was a quite a shocking set, quite a powerful 3-0.
Yeah. Um Honestly, I think there was a lot of things that go into that set specifically compared to probably every other set in the tournament that I played, honestly. Um I think from going down 0-2 so many times to only making top 8 because Jmook dropped out. Actually, I would have had to play Jmook to make it in the top
Yep.
8 and he dropped out. So the tournament to an extent felt a little Mickey Mouse. Like I was I felt like I was stealing sets from people. I felt like I made it in the top 8 because Jmook dropped out. So like there was a lot of things just removing all the stress from the competition. Like it just felt like I wasn't even supposed to be in the bracket anymore at top 8 or during top 8. So when I played Josh Man, the nerves were just gone, and I was just playing as comfortable and free as I could, and it felt great. And going into the top 8, I got so mad about the controller thing, I just removed my R trigger. So like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, I played with one trigger, and I was like, yeah, I had a modder just take it out entirely. I just didn't want to deal with it, so I just never light shielded again because I have a regular trigger on my right trigger and like a digital trigger on my left. So I just ignored light shielding. I just wanted to focus purely on moving and playing well, and it worked out great versus Josh. I played versus Mango. We warmed up together against each other actually, and he was in a pretty sour mood from losing to, I think, Hungrybox.
Yeah,
Which,
in winners.
yeah, naturally I was a little bummed about too because I'd rather play HBox than I would Mango, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So when we warmed up together, we were kind of talking. We were, I think, drinking a beer or two in the back in the VIP room.
Let's go.
And he was kind of messing me up, but it was also like I was moving so well that I thought in my head, I was like, if I really, really, really try right now, I feel like I have a good shot at beating him. And usually when I warm up, I try my absolute ass off to beat his ass in friendlies just so I can make him more motivated to win the tournament. But I think because we were just kind of being so casual about it, trying to relax before the set, we just didn't have that same energy that we normally do. And it was like super casual, but he was, like I said, messing me up. So once we walked on stage, I was like, okay, I really want him to win this tournament, but I also don't want to just give it to him for free. So I'm going to just try as hard as I can. If I get the W, cool. But if it forces him to step up his game and play better so that he beats me, then he has a better chance of winning the tournament. So if I just go easy on him, then he's got zero chance of winning. There's no way he's going to be Aklo if I just go easy on him.
Mm-hmm.
So I might as well just try my best and see what happens. And unfortunately, I I played great. I think that was one of the best sets I played like all year. I was moving well. I was reading roles. I was edge guarding well. I was punishing hard. I think I played great. I obviously don't think he played his best, but I do remember seeing signs of him really wanting to win the set. Certain things he did, like waiting for a laser grab, waiting in the corner sometimes, not super panicking whenever, because like, people make fun of the whole reading his role 8 times or whatever. But there was still a lot of times where he would take his time in spots so much that I know he wanted to win. So it's,
Wow.
he can say that he didn't fully try, which I could agree with that. I don't think his heart was in it 100%, but there were moments where he definitely didn't want to lose, and I take a lot of pride in that because that's my guy. He's my friend, best friend, but I still want to beat his ass when I can. So
It was a beautiful set. And there's something to be said about a lot of the sets between you two on these streams and these tournaments that end up shaking up, no matter how it ends, being so widely regarded. I think your Big House 4 set is considered by many to be one of the very best Melee has ever given. Period, as a set. Do you think it's because you both simultaneously want to win but also and want the other person to win, and you don't want to give it to them for free? Is there like all these dynamics of how much you two have played and understand each other that help create these beautiful sets?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is we don't usually just want to beat each other. We also want to, I don't want to say embarrass the other player, but we want to definitely style on each other because I don't even think we're thinking about the crowd when we play against each other, right? We're not trying to impress them. We're not trying to entertain them. We're not trying to just get the W or the L. We're 100% just trying to win like a moral battle versus each other. Because like I said, we grew up together. We've been always about style and about trying to just one up the other. And to us, the win or the loss isn't as it's not as important as making the other person feel smaller. And so I think because of that mentality we've had growing up together, just like as natural rivals and everything we do, I think that just comes out super hard in our Melee sets, and that's why people really, really enjoy them.
Yeah, it always feels like, and as a viewer, it's like you want somehow both of you to advance on. Like either way it shakes up, there's that feeling like, man, if there was a way that both players could move on in bracket from this set, like what a world we would live in. It's really cool. And there's this perception, and it's given to people from the same region all the time, like, oh, because you live in this region, you practice against this person all the time. Like that's it's very common in Melee. If you have one Pikachu in your region, guess what? You should be the best at playing Pikachu because clearly you play against Pikachu all the time.
Yeah,
I can imagine that because you and Mango are such good friends and have been so close for so long. Would you say that you are still each other's number one practice partners at this current time, or how does that shake out now?
funny enough, over recent years, we have not played anywhere near as much. I think a lot of that having to do with us streaming at opposite times. Most of our practice for the last couple years, honestly, if not 5 or more years, I think most of our practice comes specifically from streaming. We've played Melee so long that we treat it more as a job than
Yeah,
like a hobby anymore, or trying to get better on our own time. So it's if he's not streaming, he's not playing Melee, and if I'm not streaming, I'm not playing Melee. So we just really don't practice together anymore. So I think his best partner probably isn't me. I He has brought up recently that he thinks we're better when we play against each other, so we should try to play more. So
interesting.
maybe yeah, maybe we could be our still the best partners for each other. We just don't know it anymore. But maybe next year, maybe next year we start grinding again.
Wow. And it's very interesting because I think that it's a lot of people probably just without talking about it or asking or wondering just imagine, oh, you guys are this close, you probably
Mhm.
play each other all the time. But it is really cool to see it come out in tournament, this feud that has all this history behind it. And was that the set you felt best about? Was that the set your favorite set at Wavelength?
uh, I would say so. Yeah, I think if I had clutched out the Aklo win, that one probably would have meant a little more, just because I do think he wasn't playing his best. So even though I did beat him, even though I felt like I was playing great, it doesn't feel as amazing to beat him when I know he's not at his best.
Mm-hmm.
I I cannot express enough of a W is a W to most people,
Yeah.
but I genuinely enjoy beating someone when I feel like they're playing at their best, or when they're playing to a higher level. When someone's playing bad, it's like, oh cool, I got a W on a piece of paper. When I beat someone when they're playing their best, or I feel like they're playing their best, it just feels so much better personally. So again, the Aklo set I think would have meant a lot more if I had been able to beat Aklo, because I feel like he was playing well. I feel like I was playing well. Just couldn't squeak it out, sadly.
Yeah. But they were, I gotta say, win or lose, it felt like every set on there was one that went down to the wire. And it was
Yeah.
the crowd, hearing the crowd from as a stream watcher, it was
Mhm.
incredible to just hear how loud the Lucky Chants were. And
Yeah. Yeah.
it's funny that I originally, when I was planning questions for the interview, I wanted to think about like, hey, did this performance at Wavelength impact your motivation for any other remaining tournaments you have for the year or going into next year's Melee? But right at the same time as Wavelength was happening, Rivals 2 beta started coming out, or like Rivals
Yeah.
2 as a full game came out.
Yeah.
And so I want to take a brief detour on the questions. I know I sent the document, but if I could take a brief detour to
Yeah, of course,
ask
of course.
that, it's clear you've been invested in Rivals of Aether 2,
Mhm.
and you've given a lot of hope to the Forsboroughs out there. It's been it's been awesome to watch, especially because like Rivals feels so good in so many ways. It's been really fun. And across the many sets of Forsburn and Crag over the last couple weeks, do you feel your potential as a top player in Rivals 2? Like, do you see yourself as somebody who can contend in these like emerging bigger and bigger brackets as someone who can do really well at those as well?
It's really hard to say. I think right now I'm just having fun with the game, and I'm genuinely enjoying it for the most part when I'm not raging about Orcane camping me. But
Many such
for the
cases.
most yeah, exactly. So but for the most part I'm just really having fun. I do think I'm interested in seeing how good I can get. I don't really have any expectations for it. I've just spent, for better or worse, half of my life competing in Melee. So it's like at this point I'm not exactly in a rush to go compete in something else. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm not really bent out of shape about it. I'll always have Melee to go back to if I do want to get my competitive itch on. So
Word.
for now, it's just one stream at a time and one Forsburn match at a time.
Do you think Rivals has the potential to be a game that generates like high entrance or has a big impact? Like, do you think as a growing competitive game that it could be a premier tournament game?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think it has all the avenues that it needs to succeed. It's from what I understand, just talking to people I know, the dev team is pretty open to feedback. Um, they have a pretty diverse team for playtesters. They have devs that are listening to those playtesters and also taking input from online and stuff. So it seems like the game is going to go in a great place for uh you know a lot of like the mechanics in it being tweaked and adjusted so to make sure that it's a good game. And unfortunately, no matter how good a game is, it's only going to succeed by how well it's taken from a casual aspect, right?
Hmm.
And I think because Ludwig is kind of a part of that franchise that's producing the game or whatever, I don't see him letting it fail. That guy is a marketing genius. He's kind of a monster when it comes to just advertising and taking care of social media. So like this game is being worked on from a lot of great people. It's going to be advertised by one of the goats of YouTube. Like
Hmm.
I kind of don't see the game failing. We'll see how big it actually can get, but I think it's got a lot of hope for it right now. Or I got a lot of hope for it personally.
Do you have any plans on entering any rivals tournaments moving forward? Is it like a case by case basis? What's the vibe on lucky in person rival tournaments?
Yeah, I don't know. I've kind of thought about looking up locals in my local area just to see. But right now I'm kind of just playing it online and
Hmm.
definitely seeing how good I can get. I've talked to Mango about it a little bit, and we're floating the idea of possibly tryharding as
Yo,
hard as we can until Genesis, and maybe taking Genesis serious for that for Rivals 2.
that's
It's not
pretty heat if it happens.
yeah, yeah. It's not set in stone because obviously Genesis is like a random Super Bowl for Melee.
Hmm.
It's just we always do complain about Melee for Genesis since it's like this weird off season that leads into it. So everyone, or at least
Yeah.
Mango and I, we tend to enjoy the holidays more than most people. And when we do, we just don't play much Melee. Yeah. So when we go into Genesis, we're a little rusty. So at this moment, we're having so much fun playing Rivals that maybe Rivals will be the power play for us to play at Genesis. So we'll see.
All right. I got a couple more questions. I think rivals are related because I really am interested, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll wrap it up. And once again, I appreciate it. I know we're uh, over a little bit over a half hour in, so thank you
Yeah,
again.
of course,
Um,
no problem.
if they said Lucky, we're the dev team here at Rivals, and we're gonna take your advice and only your advice on the next thing we're gonna nerf in the game for the next update. What do you think is the biggest issue facing Rivals gameplay right now?
The biggest issue, I I can't think of anything more important than recovery right now. I feel like recovery is just it just feels very very overtuned, and I get the idea that they don't want people getting cheap killed or gimped at 0%, but it just feels so overtuned that sometimes I'll get up to like 60% off an edge guard because I'm literally hitting them off the stage that many times. If I get 60% on someone and they're purely off stage, they haven't touched the ground one time, that means I hit them like, maybe 8 times. A character should probably be dead at that point. So I just feel like they need to somehow look at the resources and how they refresh when you get hit. A big thing I've thought to help recovery is when you are in the air in this game, you're allowed one air dodge. If you get
Mhm.
hit, that air dodge refreshes. If you land on the floor, then you're good to go. I've been thinking it wouldn't be the worst idea to do one air dodge per air, and even if you do get hit, it doesn't come back. I think that would help a lot.
Ooh.
Either that or the wall jump refreshing as well, because right now you have a air dodge, a forward B, which with most characters that can lead into a wall jump.
Yep.
Then you can up B after. You also have a double jump, so it's like all those resources together are really really strong. And if you hit someone, they basically get their air dodge back and they get their forward B back, which lets them again air dodge, forward B, wall jump, up E. It's like it recycles over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So maybe just per air time, just limit it to one, even if they do get hit. I think that might help a lot because then their initial recovery is still going to be really really strong, but if they get hit, it just becomes a bit worse. So
Yeah.
hopefully they do something to fix recovery. I just don't know what it's going to be. That's just my thought on it. I think that'd be a good change.
I think you describe it pretty well. I think hearing somebody take 60% and only recovery damage is hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
What character needs to get nerfed? Who is the most bullshit character in Rivals right now?
Dude, I cannot stress how much I hate Rano. I like.
I'm a Rano main, so you know what?
It's fine. You can be a Rano main. That's completely fine.
Go on.
In every world, I love picking the best character in the game. For some reason, it didn't happen in this game, and I beat myself up about it every day. I don't know why I spent like 3 weeks on Forsburn when Rano was just sitting there looking pretty. But it's like this game has a very, very strong shield. There's no shield poke. There's no mixing up left and right. There's no high and low like in Street Fighter. It's just a shield, and it just shields you from all directions, and it can take a couple hits before it breaks. It recovers pretty fast.
Yeah.
Shield is just strong. Shield grabbing is fantastic. It feels like most characters have a really good grab game, so having a shield that strong plus grabs that good makes shielding amazing. Rano, he benefits from that just as well as every other character, but he also gets to aerial out of shield into hitfall, which literally makes him able to combo into jabs and tilts out of shield, which is insane. His tilts come out so fast it literally looks like they just beat crouch canceling, which some characters actually just get blown up for doing a full jab 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 sequence. Rano does not, because he does jab 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 into a very safe up tilt. So it's like his out of shield game is just insane.
Paradise.
Yes, his CC down tilt, it might be one of the best in the game, honestly. It can lead into grab if they don't CC it back. It can lead into combos from like low to mid percents. At high percents, it combos into kill moves, and like all three of them. It can combo into up smash at around 100. It can combo into fair or bear at a higher percent. Like he just has like every strong tool in the game all in one nice little package, where other characters, they have really, really strong tools, but they don't have every single strong tool. And I feel like he just benefits from every little mechanic in the game right now. So I just think he's a little too strong.
I'm glad you agree that Rano should be buffed. I think that's the big takeaway from here, is that he's not. He really is just a solid C tier character, but I do think that he needs a lot in this game.
Indeed. Oh, he has a command throw too, which is really cool.
Also is recovery, and
yes. And it can lead to 60% if they have enough stacks of poison. It can lead to a kill confirm.
The Rano labbers are crazy. Like, there's a ton of dedicated Rano labbers in this game, and it seems like a full stack bubble is just death for many people.
Insane. Actually insane.
Wow. And if I could ask you one more question.
Yeah, of course.
If everything goes as planned, Lucky, what are your plans for 2025? Are there anything you've been thinking of as far as streaming, tournament entering, games that you want to make happen, or that you want to continue, or that you want to dedicate to? Are there any goals so far?
At the current moment, I wouldn't say so. As far as streaming goes, I just want to stay consistent. I'm having a lot of fun with Rivals, so I'm going to keep playing that. Whatever happens with Melee happens with Melee. I'm not exactly in a rush to spend a whole year competing again. I'm actually more than anything looking forward to just focusing on a lot of like aspects in life. It might mean taking a little bit of a break from traveling, which I'm not opposed to doing at all. This past year, I think I traveled, if not twice a month, once every single month this year. And it was a lot of traveling, a lot of Melee. So I'm kind of going to look at 2025 as a reset to everything. I might really take a backseat to competing just for 1 year, at least, just to focus on life, focus on health, get on the workout grinds. And, just make it more of a me year. And then 2026, maybe I'll get back into the competitive scene and just really, really gun for a top rank again,
Nice. Well, I'm certainly, as well as many others, probably looking forward to the Jacked Lucky arc. I think this is going to be huge.
I'm looking forward to it myself.
Maybe you'll come back a Rano main. I think there'd be a lot of people, very happy with this development. Although
it might be what I'm missing in life.
There's a lot of Force Bros who are clinging on to you and Void playing the character. I guess Leo plays it too, but there's a lot of what if maybe this can be the last question. What are your words of hope to the Forsburn players out there?
See, the thing is, I know Void and I are kind of the Forsburns that a lot of people know about, and it's mostly because we stream. We stream every day. We're consistent with streaming. People know us. People see us. There are other Forsburns out there that are putting in work. Shout outs to Soul Rifle and
Mhm.
Pikmon. But for the most part, if you're a Forsburn player, just know you're gonna have to work. But it just means you're the better player. If you're working that much harder and you're getting a W, that means you earned that W. There was no gimmick. There was a little bit of deception, but ultimately you're just getting better and better and better. And whenever they nerf those other busted characters, you're gonna be the better player. So just
Yeah.
just keep at it.
That's it.
Keep at
If
it.
you play the character long enough, everyone else will get nerfed, and you will be the best character. Yeah.
And you're just gonna be working so much harder that you're gonna naturally be better at the game. That when their characters do get nerfed, they're not gonna be carried anymore. So that the better player is gonna win in the end.
It
keep at it.
brings a tear to my eye. Amazing. Well, Lucky, thank you so much for taking the time to answer all these questions.
Yeah, of course.
Part 1 of the video is already done. It's already uploaded. So this is a 2-parter. I will let you know when it finishes, when it's done, and you can check it out if you'd like.
Yeah, please do.
Overall, though, I appreciate everything you've been bringing to streaming and gaming, and even if 2025 is a you year, you absolutely deserve it. So I hope it goes well. If you guys end up tryharding Rivals, that'll be crazy. I can't wait to see what that looks like. But either way,
looking forward to it.
that's fire. All right. Thank you so much. I'll let you go with whatever you got going on the rest of today, but I really appreciate doing this interview, and I will let you know any finished products, and they can get the hopeful Lucky seal of approval.
Yeah, sounds good, bro.
Cool.
And thank you, by the way, for having me. I appreciate all the questions and stuff. It means a lot.
It was a pleasure. You're the ultimate homie. So it's been really cool getting to talk to you and pick your brain on a bunch of these topics.
Cool. Happy
Yeah.
to do it.
All right.